Hello, everyone. So, welcome to the last session in our monthly current affairs series. And today we'll be discussing the second part of our science and tech. In the first session, we talked about human health and disease, where we look at a few of the diseases, and we have seen the few other facts related to human health, like malaria, brain atlas, and all these things. Today, we'll talk about the space, some biotech news, and some miscellaneous science and tech. Let us start. Starting with the first one, that is the space in news. The first one, that is the rusting on the moon. You see, in the space, what are the things that are important? I'll keep reiterating that in each and every month. In the space, what are the things that are important? For example, the missions. Such facts, rusting on the moon and such things are relatively less important. You just need to know a few things, but they are relatively less important. What are more important are missions, let us say telescopes. So they are a bit more institutional things are more important in this space, right? So and plus conceptual things such as, for example, today we'll discuss something about Venus. So those are the things you can those things can be asked. Solar system stuff. Pay. So that's how you need to divide. First time reading, everything has to be read. But when you revise twice or thrice, second reading and third reading revision, put more emphasis on the those aspects, missions, telescope, and try to create the big picture here. Make your own notes. Okay, these are NASA's missions to different planets. These are ISRO's mission to different planets. These are the NASA plus ISRO together. This is ESA. This is China's mission, like that. So you need to make that list. That will help you to remember and basically retain those facts. Let us discuss this one. So Chandrayaan 1 has sent some images which shows the possible impact of Earth atmosphere on moon. And one of the impact that is seen, that is the rusting on the moon. So some hematites have been found at the in the moon. Some hematite, that means the rust. So formation of the hematite requires first the iron, then your oxygen, right? Oxygen and water. Now the hypothesis that how the it is being proven that yes, moon contains iron. It's been established by NASA that iron is found on the moon. But what about this oxygen and the water? Only the images have come, and now they are thinking that, or what can be the reasons for the presence of hydrogen in water on the basis of less iron, which is already being found, that has led to the formation of hematite on the or rust on the moon. Now that is surprising because moon surface is not known for the presence of water in the oxygen, hence it is surprising. Check. Now some of the explanations that have come, for example, for oxygen, the explanation has come that is from Earth atmosphere because of the solar winds. A magnetosphere is formed, and this magneto trail, some of the oxygen from this goes to the moon. So moon gets some of the oxygen because of this magneto trail. Okay, with the help of this in the times of the solar winds. ठीक है, so oxygen यहाँ से आ गया. Then there have been the findings or the efforts have been taken to decipher whether the moon's pole are home to water. That scientists are trying to decipher, and one of the indications have come from this rusting issue, right? So oxygen may be from magnetosphere, water already present but still not established, iron established, and all this has led to the finding that rusting can be seen. So this is the overarching idea. Next is the phosphine gas. So what is this phosphine gas? Recently, the presence of this gas has been found on the Venus. Phosphine gas is pH 3. Now, presence of the phosphine gas has given some hope to the scientists of the presence of life on Venus. Life in the form of the bacteria, smaller microbes. Why? Because phosphine is naturally made by some species of the anaerobic bacteria, organisms that live in the oxygen-starved environments, landfill, marshland, and even animal guts. So these are the bacteria that create phosphine gas. So if the phosphine gas is there on the surface of the Venus, what is the source of it? So it indicates the possible sign of life on the Venus. So one of the ways to create phosphine is natural way that we have discussed on the basis of which the Venus thing is being done. One of the other way is the your artificial way. Artificial way means just like it has been made as a chemical weapon during the World War I, manufactured as an agricultural fumigant in the semiconductor industry as a byproduct of the meth lab. So we are concerned with the how it's been done naturally. Obviously, the humans are not there to manufacture it artificially, but as it is formed naturally, and naturally it can only be formed if any life form is there, and that is why it is being said that on the Venus we can have a life. Now, last year we also discussed about Venus. ISRO is also looking for one mission on the Venus that is known as Shukrayan 1. Is proposed orbiter only. So orbiter to study the surface and the atmosphere of the Venus. So this is one of the projected very important projects of the ISRO. The basic work is being done, is being started or something like that. But soon the ISRO will announce, if they have announced that in the future they want to go and do this Shukrayan 1 mission. But the concrete details will come later on. For example, current plans is for the Chandrayaan 3, right? So these are the immediate projects, some long-term projects. It is Shukrayan 1. Okay? Now, one important thing that can be asked, that is the difference between Venus and Mars. Where we should go and which way we should go from Earth, whether we should go for the Mars or whether we should go for the Venus, right? Now, with respect to the Venus, there are some advantages with respect to the Venus. First, that Venus is closer to Earth. In fact, Venus is known as the twin planet or sister planet with respect to Earth. A lot of similarity it shows with the Earth as compared to the Mars. First, it is closer to the sun. It is closer to the Earth. That means from let us say this is Earth, this is Mars, and this is Venus. So this distance is closer. When this distance is less, that means going to and fro is easy. So shorter trips, around 30 to 50% short trips, require less fuel and the cost is also less. Next, it is closer to sun. You have around 4 times more solar energy. You have 4 times more solar energy to survive. Let's say your aircraft went and then you have the energy source already present, solar energy very well present there. Then the thicker atmosphere. Venus has a very thick atmosphere. So when it has a very thick atmosphere, so it can fight out all the solar winds which is there. Solar wind, a lot of solar winds are coming, it can fight it out. Secondly, in its atmosphere, a lot of carbon dioxide that is there, CO2. Now it's been said that this from the CO2 they can extract the oxygen. So that is also a good thing. So these are the things that makes a Venus a good place to go. And most importantly, the gravity of the Venus, it is almost similar to Earth, 0.9 per 0.9 of the Earth, whereas in the Mars it's only 0.4. Now the less gravity has a very important impact on the human beings. For example, a lot of problems of the bone come in the case of the low gravity. In fact, a lot of astronauts complained of the osteoporosis, that is reduced bone density if they go for a relatively long duration in the space. So seeing all these factors, Venus seems to be a good choice to go. Then what is the problem? The problem is said to be the surfacism. That is, the Venus surface is not very hostile. That is, temperature is more than 400 degrees Celsius because of the lot of greenhouse gases, and pressure is more than 90 times that of Earth. That will crush human beings. So obviously, we cannot land on the surface of the Venus. In fact, many missions have been taken up by NASA and by NASA, US and USSR at that time, and the probes have landed, they or in the atmosphere itself they burned away. Then later on few probes have went, they spent 1 to 2 hours, then burned away. So that goes to show that survival on the surface is a very, very tough task, which is a very big problem. But now NASA is looking at the cloud cities. What are these cloud cities? Cloud cities are basically That means that you will go 50 kilometer above. Then let me draw this, that you will go from surface from 50 kilometer if you want to live at this place. Now the pressure is similar to earth's pressure and temperature is also less, so you can have these cloud cities where the humans can live, because your pressure is less, almost similar to earth, and temperature is also less as compared to the surface. And that is why they call it havoc, high altitude Venus operational concept. So this is one of the cloud cities which they are thinking is still at a conceptual stage. So this is something that we need to know about the Venus. Let's go to the next one, that is Himalayan Chandra telescope. So a workshop to mark 20 years of Himalayan Chandra telescope to highlight the science it produced. Himalayan Chandra telescope has been used in many coordinated international campaigns to monitor stellar explosion, comets, exoplanets, and has contributed significantly to these studies. So 20 years of Himalayan Chandra telescope has been formed. What you need to remember first, its location, what is its purpose, and what this telescope is. Take. So these are the few details that you need to remember. So Himalayan Chandra telescope is, and plus, is it a recent one or not? Recent or old? Now, obviously, it says there's 20 years, so it's an old one. So like that. The question can be, recently Himalayan Chandra telescope has been put up to do all these things. So answer will be wrong. No, option will be wrong. No, it is not a recent one, because they have already asked such questions in your international affairs, chronology based questions. So workshop to mark 20 years of to highlight the science it produced. It is an optical infrared telescope that aims to study the solar system bodies and star formation in the external galaxy. So at least you need to remember the purpose of it. That external galaxy and the solar system bodies it wants to study. Installed in Ladakh, very some here in Ladakh, like very near to China. It is remotely operated using a dedicated satellite communication link from Center of Research and Education in Science and Tech, Indian Institute of Astrophysics. Okay, so from there it is remotely controlled. Next is data sonification, not very important. Data sonification is basically a project from the NASA to convert the sounds which are there in the space into some audible data. Okay, so it refers to use of the sound values to represent the real data. Okay, so transforming data from the astronomical images into audios. Anything that is happening in the atmosphere, such as birth of a star, cloud of a dust, even a black hole can be heard, or a high or low pitched sound. Okay, so converting that into a musical note. Data will be collected by a lot of observatories such as Chandra X-ray Observatory, Hubble Telescope, Spitzer Space Telescope. All these telescopes slowly and slowly we will read, because all these telescopes are very, very important, as I have discussed in the very starting of the class. So Chandra project has created the celestial concert by translating the data into sound, and these are the things. So remember, data sonification project is not of ISRO, but it is of NASA. It's a NASA's project to convert the data into the sound, in simple words. Next is the Hayang 2C. You see, in space, especially in space, if the questions are on the concept such as your orbits, है ना, Venus and like that, the questions can go into tough direction. But if the question comes on these direction, questions will be very factual and very straightforward. Next is the Hayang 2, not very important. It's a Chinese satellite basically for monitoring the ocean waves. So provide all weather and all round the clock observation of the wave height, sea surface height, wind speed, direction, and temperature. From the name itself, it is more or less clear that it is a Chinese enterprise. है ना? So from itself, it will be clear. So name is Hayang 2C. That's all. That's all we have to remember. Let's come to the next section. That is the biotechnology. First one is Pusa decomposer. It's a very important technology, and biotechnology, that as it is very related to the agriculture, hence it becomes a very, very important part of our current affair discussions. So it's in the news because Pusa biodecomposer is seen as a solution to the stubble burning problem that is creating problem for the past 3 to 4 years for the Delhi NCR region and the other state, especially the air pollution in the winter times. So one of the thing, one of the interventions that have come up, they have come up with the Pusa decomposer. So what is the idea? So in the capsule they will get this fungi thing, and they will make a liquid solution. So 2 to 3 capsules, and they'll add some more thing, they'll make a solution, and then they'll spray this solution onto the crops stubble. So it around takes 45 days to decompose. They will decompose in around 15 days. And plus the decomposed thing can be used as a manure. So the reduction of these days will give time to the farmers to prepare their field. So rather than burning this stubble, they can use the same stubble for the manure, and they don't have to burn it as well. Okay. So you can see, so their technology known as Pusa decomposer involves making a liquid formulation using a decomposer capsule. This is the capsule, readily available inputs, fermenting it over 8 to 10 days. So they'll keep it for 8 to 10 days. Then spray the mixture on the field with the crop stubble to ensure speedy biodecomposition of the stubble. Very easy to understand. Okay. So recently, scientists have developed the biodecomposer technique, that is Pusa decomposer, to convert the crop stubble into compost. The decomposer in the form of the capsule made by extracting the fungi strain that help paddy straw to decompose at a much faster rate than the usual. So then the capsule itself, a fungi will be there. That kind of a thing you can remember. It helps to produce essential enzymes for the degradation process. Then how does it work? And we have discussed that they'll make a liquid and all these things. It will improve the fertility and the productivity of the soil, as the stubble works as manures and compost for the crops, and lesser fertilizer consumption is required in the future. Next is National Gene Bank. Now National Gene Bank is basically is formed in 1996 1997. Now from the name itself, National Gene Bank, what they will store? They will store within itself, under very important under very precise temperature and pressure settings, the plant genetic resources for future generation in the form of the seeds, genome, pollen, right? So conserving the genomes or the genes of these crops, or different things, animals also sometimes. So this is being the National Gene Bank. Okay. It is hosted by National Bureau of Plant and Genetic Resources in New Delhi. Plant genetic resources. This is IC. On this lies under the ICAR. ICAR lies under the DARE, which is a department of the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare. So you need to know the structure within which it is forming. So Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, then Department of Agricultural Research and Education, then ICAR, then within that National Bureau of the Plant and Genetic Resources. Right. So it has a lot of faculty. Its location is at the Changla in Ladakh. You can see this is Changla in Ladakh. Okay. Then it has a 4 kind of facilities. You don't have to remember a lot, but just remember just see it once. Seed gene bank, cryo gene banks, in vitro gene banks, field bank, and as for long term as well as medium term conservation. So it was in the news July month and September month, because an MOU has been signed between the National Bureau of Plant and Genetic Resource and National Medicinal Plant Board, right, for conservation of the jump plants for long term basis, safety and cost effectiveness, to ensure the social and the economic security. So National Gene Bank, very quickly. So what about the world? In the world, this is known as the Doomsday Vault, which is present in the Sweden. That is known as the Salvard Global Seed Vault in Norway, which houses the world's largest collection of the seeds. India's vault, we have discussed, that is in Ladakh. Animal Gene Bank is different, established at the National Bureau of the Animals. Then what about this institute? Very quickly, National Bureau of Plant and Genetic Resources, that we have discussed, this one only, headquartered in Delhi. It's one of the ICR institutes under the Department of Agricultural Research and Education. It's a nodal organization for management of plant genetic resources, headquartered in New Delhi, and 10 regional stations. What about the next one with which the MOU has been signed? That is National Medicinal Plant Board. National Medicinal Plant Board. So it's a government of India set up this National Medicinal Plant Board on 2000 under the Ministry of Ayush. So currently it works under the Ministry of the Ayush. Okay. Medicinal Plant Boards. To develop an appropriate mechanism for coordination between various ministries, department, organization, implementation of support for conservation, cultivation, trade, and exports of the medicinal plant, both at center and the international level. All these things are, to be honest, not important, but just need to know in which structure each and everything is falling. है ना? Last year, last discussion, last slide, we have discussed ministry, then department, ICAR, because this will help you in your mains exam also. Because they can ask at a very, in any case, they can ask, कि भाई, what is the structure of agricultural education in India? So you can draw a map. भाई ये ministry, this department, ICAR is the nodal agency, and like that. Chalo, the last fact, that is science and tech, some miscellaneous stuff. That is, every year in September month, they award this Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar prize. Now, for the prelims purpose, we don't have to go for who has been awarded this, like that, nothing important, but we need to know about this prize. So every year it is given eligibility, any citizen of India up to the age of 45, overseas citizen, and PIOs are also working in India is also eligible. So citizen plus others. Named after the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar, who was the founder director of the CSIR. If you remember, we have discussed about CSIR in our last discussion. You know? Mr. Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar, the question can come in your mains because there is a topic in your science and tech about the contributions of the Indians in the field of the science. Hai na? So they can ask about the contribution of Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar. Few of the things that you need to remember, that he was the founder of the CSIR. On the CSIR Foundation Day, this prize has been given 26 September. He was also the first chairman of the UGC. Okay, first secretary to the Ministry of Natural Resources, Scientific Research, secretary to the Atomic Energy Commission. 3 to 4 facts you need to remember. Then write something about the CSIR. That's all. Was a chemistry professor, poet, and actor, and a few things that you need to remember. So if they ask such questions, it will be under the 10 marker. You have to write more or less about the ideas, how he contributed, but some of the facts you need to remember. Ki bhai, specific to him, some of the facts, 3 to 4 facts. That's all. Okay? Chalo. So with this, we finish our this particular session, that is Science and Technology Part 2, and with which we finish our September monthly current affairs. And very soon we'll start the October month as well. As we have said that we will complete your current affairs for this 2021 for sure. And now slowly after February, we will gain up the pace and we will include each and everything. Very quickly we'll finish October, then we'll move on in the further months. So see you all in the next class. Till then, bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.